But I want to thank everyone for being here today, especially our governor for coming down and taking some time to see all the positives that are happening here in Newtown. I have to admit, when I got the call from the governor's office yesterday, I got a little worried that he might know something that I didn't, because the last time he was here, we had about 70% of the town without power. So I was a little stressed when they first called, but even though it's misting today, I think we're going to keep our power. I also want to thank the Connecticut Realtors for being part of this, and also our local realtors. I enjoy what I think is a great relationship with our local real estate community, and I think they do a great job telling Connecticut's story, but more importantly, Newtown's story. And I think we have a great story to tell, and I appreciate everything that they do to market our community, and I'm really pleased with a lot of the positive activity that we are seeing. I think our local success really begins with everyone rowing in the same direction. And I think it begins with strong schools, with great public safety. We have a terrific police department in Newtown. Our chief of police is here today. We work very closely on a lot of things, as I do with our superintendent of schools. And unfortunately, Dr. Rodri couldn't be here today. But again, I think that local coordination, I think, is really important when you talk about attracting residents and new businesses to our community. It's also coordination with our local boards, our commissions. We have members of our Economic Development Commission here today, town staff, and also our state delegation. Mitch Belinsky, our state representative, is here. Mitch and I, of course, work very closely together, and he helps assist with a lot of issues at the state level. So dare I say, it's bipartisanship. Rarely on a local level do political issues get in the way. I think we all work together well, and I think that's why Newtown has such a great story to tell. And I'm happy to see our realtors as busy as they've been. I think Joanne Breen had mentioned this is the busiest she's been in 42 years, and I'm hearing that from all of them. We're seeing business investment in our town. We're seeing breweries open, from breweries to wineries to eateries, and reinvestment in properties. The gas station right next door just did a multi-million-dollar investment in their property there. So again, it's about making the gateways into our town, much better too. So I'm proud of our community, the resilience that it's shown time and time again. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that times are tough too. So I know it's a positive message today, but I want to temper that with the fact that a lot of our residents and a lot of our businesses are struggling. I'm very pleased with the advocacy that the governor, the legislature has shown to try to support residents and businesses. But that doesn't mean that we can't do more, and we have to do more. Again, to sustain the positive activity we're seeing, I think that we really have to make sure that we're being considerate of the people that are struggling, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to help our business community. It's the backbone of our community. They support our residents. They obviously provide jobs. They're the reason people come to town to shop and sort of explore our community. And they also provide vital support to our nonprofits. So again, I thank the governor. I thank all of you for being here and just taking a little look at all the positive activity that's going on in Newtown. And now, if I may, I'd like to turn it over to Joanne Breen. Joanne is the outgoing president of the Connecticut Realtors Association. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. We're really excited to be here today, and I, of course, want to thank Governor Lamont, first of all, for keeping us as an essential service here in Connecticut. We had 10,000 pending transactions at the beginning of the pandemic, and buyers and sellers who had a real need, dire need to transact. So thank you, Governor, for all of your guidance and your help throughout this. I'm very happy to report that it is the busiest year we've seen in at least 12 years in Connecticut. And I think it's attributed to a combination of factors. I think there was some pent-up demand because the year started off looking fairly active. But then, of course, with the pandemic, I think the whole idea of home and the way people feel about home has changed. It's not just a place where you crash at the end of a long work day. It's the place where you do work. It's the place where you school your children. It's the place where you want to have recreational activities and space for that in your own backyard. And I think this has contributed in a way that it's brought people in from out of state, because we are so affordable here compared to the high prices that have spiked in surrounding states over the last few years. And then in addition to that, people within the state of Connecticut, many of them are making a move because they're reevaluating whether or not the home they live in is working for them anymore. So we're seeing a combination of things, and what I'm really hopeful for is that over the last few years we saw some people leaving the state looking for greener pastures. I'm hoping they'll realize now that this is where the green pastures are, along with the shoreline, along with some great metropolitan areas that are far more affordable than the large hubs like New York and Boston. So that's our good news, and I would now like to introduce Tammy Fellenstein, who's our 2022 CT Realtors President. We represent over 17,000 members, and Tammy can talk about what's been going on in her end of the state.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, and thank you, everyone. And again, thank you, Governor Lamont, for all of your leadership. I think one of the best decisions that you made was declaring that real estate was considered essential in the beginning of this, and boy, was that a smart decision. I come from the Stamford area, so representing Fairfield County, I can tell you that we are seeing countless stories of people coming from the boroughs of Manhattan, of New York City. We have Natalie, who lived in the Bronx her whole life with her 2 children, who went to the bank and found out that she could buy something really nice and ended up in Bethel. Or we have other people that have the financial wherewithal to buy second homes and have an option to come up here and shelter in place throughout these difficult times. But the stories are countless. We have people coming from Manhattan who are living in several hundred square feet, paying astronomical prices on price per square foot, and coming up and realizing that for the same amount of money, sometimes less, or maybe a little more depending on where you go, that you can get a 4-bedroom house with 2.5 baths and a yard and an office and a pool. And so our message to everyone out of the state is this is no longer give us a Connecticut to sell. It's time to come get a piece of Connecticut. It's only going to get better here. Our time is now, and thank you all for coming today. Joanne?
Now I'd like to introduce Crystal Presler. Crystal is the Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development here in Newtown.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for coming today. Really excited to have you in Newtown. We love when people come to visit or come to live. So I'm going to echo a lot of what Dan said with some more detail. Similar to a lot of other towns and states, things are difficult. We're facing unprecedented times with COVID. But I think some of our businesses have quickly pivoted, and those are the ones that we're seeing doing quite well at this time. Whether it's a manufacturing company moving their business to do PPE to support medical people, or restaurants doing takeout, restaurants doing outdoor dining. There's so much creativity, the e-commerce that people are getting into more quickly than they ever thought they would. A lot of positives are here. I always feel fortunate to be part of Newtown, and I'm so glad you're here because we really love sharing our community with everybody else, and we hope we'll come back again on an even sunnier, better day. The town always is working, all the departments, to support the businesses, as well as our residents. Additionally, we like to work along with the state DECD. We're in touch with Advanced CT quite often. And 2 important things are the CT Cares Small Business Grant Program that was announced this week, as well as the COVID relief funds for the arts. Both of those will be very impactful to our community. We have some larger employers, but we also have a lot of small businesses, mom and pop shops. And that's important to us, and those smallest businesses could benefit greatly from these most recent grants. As Dan said, we do have some good stuff going on. We're in the middle of a really tough year, but we've had maybe 5 ribbon cuttings in the last couple weeks, and that's really great. It makes us feel really good. We've had a second brew pub open in town, so now there's one kind of in the center of Fairfield Hills and one over by the highway. A number of health and wellness focused businesses, which is a great thing to have right now. Unique boutique shops that sell all sorts of candies or clothes or just unique items. Soon we're going to have a vineyard opening, so that's another very exciting thing. That'll be over in Sandy Hook. And a renovated inn on Main Street is an iconic part of the town, so we're really happy to have that renovation done. Whether you live, work, or visit here, there's something for everybody. So there's dining and entertainment, green spaces, waterways and hiking trails, arts and culture, and historic Main Street. This weekend, as an example of something you could do when you come back, is to go to Fairfield Hills campus. There's a scarecrow contest up there that's being supported by businesses, local organizations, and the Park and Rec Department. And it's really fun to drive around and see the different flavors of the different businesses and the scarecrows. So I hope you'll get a chance to do that. The housing stock continues to diversify in town, so we're becoming a place where even more people can call home. So thanks for coming. I hope you'll grab lunch before you go and maybe stop in a shop. And I'd like to introduce Connecticut's Governor, Governor Ned Lamont.
Thanks, Crystal. And sun joy is shining in Newtown. You may not always know it. And Dan, thank you. I love Newtown, and I think there are a lot of people here that love Newtown. And I think people are rediscovering, like Joanne said, the great state of Connecticut. And this is just part of a trend. I see in Newtown, I see it in Fairfield County, I see it going up the coast. There was a headline, banner headline in the Hartford Courant today, third best market in the country. This is Hartford. I think people are rediscovering the Connecticut lifestyle and what it means, and have a new appreciation for what we're able to do. I'm trying to think, what have you heard? I was just listening to your story about why people are taking a second look at Connecticut. Remember 2 years ago, I was running for office, and moving vans are all leaving the state. Last one out, turn out the lights, all that sort of negativity. I thought people were like the Delray Chamber of Commerce or something. Well, that's no more. I mean, moving vans are turning around, and more people are coming to Connecticut than ever before. Tens of thousands of people have moved or changed their address to the state of Connecticut in the last few months. And they're buying, they're renting, and they're building. I mean, yes, we kept real estate going as an essential business. We also kept construction going as an essential business. And while residential construction is up maybe 2.5% around the country, it's up about 18% here in the state of Connecticut. One of the highest in the country. And what that means for our schools, what that means in terms of reducing property tax, expanding the grand list, what that means in terms of bringing our towns to life. And they're not all old guys like me coming into the state of Connecticut. There are a lot of young families coming to the state of Connecticut and rediscovering what makes this place so special. In terms of lifestyle, you're 10 minutes away from a beautiful park. I think people have a new appreciation of what that means in this COVID world. I think they love the fact that our schools are primarily open. We have 95% of our kids have an opportunity to go to school into the classroom. I think Dan just said, at least for the early grades, it's open 5 days a week. And high school is going to be open a couple weeks later. They're shut down in Boston. They're closing down in New York. We're doing everything we can to make sure our kids have an opportunity, A, to continue their education, and B, just socialize and make sure that this complicated period is not a lost period. It's an opportunity they have going forward to make a difference. I think I've always said I don't want more taxes, but I don't mind more taxpayers. And what that meant in terms of our economy, what that means in terms of our budget, what that meant in terms of the fact that, look, we announced yesterday or the day before that our budget deficit, it ain't pretty. We have a deficit like everybody else, but it's down dramatically thanks to a lot of people coming to the state, a lot of people who are paying sales tax, a lot more people going to some of our restaurants as we can keep them open, and puts us in a much stronger position economically compared to a lot of our peers. I think these are all things that people realize make Connecticut special, why those moving vans are turning around. Look, we are one of the third, what was the rating? Third state most likely for people to be leaving the state of Connecticut. Today, we're the third highest in the country in terms of people coming to Connecticut. I think it's Vermont is number one. You can have 9 people leave and 12 come in. That's a pretty good number for them. But also, it's a pretty cool state. Number 2 is North Dakota. I mean, come on, guys. I think we can compete with North Dakota. And number 3 in the country is Connecticut, and that, I think, we all know why. And so I'm really pleased to be able to celebrate what's going on in Newtown, what's going on in your new police station, long overdue. What's going on with a vineyard as our communities come to life and young people rediscover what it's all about. So I wish I could leave you just on a positive note, because I like to be positive, but I also have to be realistic. And as Dan referenced, it is a complicated time. Our infection rate was the lowest in the country over the last few months. And like the rest of the country, we've been ticking up. And today, the United States of America announced more infections than ever before. And while Connecticut has gone from a 1% infection rate to a 2% infection rate, we're now about 2.3 over the last 7 days and 2.9% today. And that's not a trend I like to see. And it gives me no comfort to say we're the lowest in the region and one of the lowest in the country, because I don't wish this on anybody. But I do say it to you to thank the people of Connecticut, because I know you're exhausted. I know this is going on for a long time. I know you thought, okay, we've been good. It's the end of the summer. Finally, we turned the corner and we're out of the woods. And we're not quite out of the woods yet, but we will be if we stay careful, stay cautious, wear the masks, and take care and look out for each other. But that said, I think in the meantime, people know that Connecticut's an amazing place to be. That's why they're moving here. And Newtown's an amazing place to be, Dan, and I'm really proud to be with you today. And Mitch, do I get to introduce you? Well, come on in and tell us what the legislature's going to do.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you very much. Mitch Belinsky. I'm a representative for Newtown in the State House, District 106. And I've always been a lover of Newtown. But right now, what's happening in our community and what's happening in Connecticut in general, but really happening here, is this influx of interest in real estate and in commercial development. And the governor was right, as was Dan. This community is one giant green space. This is a place of peace. This is a place where people can feel safe, where we've got wonderful police, a wonderful police force. This has been dramatic, the way real estate has started to move in Newtown. And I credit all Connecticut realtors for being able to keep up with it. Most of them are working 7 days a week, because Newtown is the perfect community to plant yourself between the two metropolises. And we happen to be in a state that is right now safe, relatively safe in this really crazy COVID time. The governor has provided good, solid leadership in keeping us with a low infection rate and also being responsive to our community. At the very early stages of this, he was listening. And when Newtown spoke, he actually listened, and we in Newtown had input into changes in policy. We relaxed, not relaxed, but we did a little bit of a carve out so that, you know, our breweries, especially the two new ones in town, had the ability to, you know, move their operations outside, but they have flourished locally. The governor has been responsive to us, and, you know, he deserves a word of thanks for that. Newtown is a great place. For anybody that has not visited this town, I welcome you. Please come and take a look and see why everybody wants to come to Newtown now. Thank you very much.
Trying to stay a little bit out of the rain here. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I again want to thank you, Governor Lamont, for the leadership you've provided us and the guidance, and for giving us an opportunity to come and tell everybody about how wonderful it is to be selling real estate here in Connecticut and welcoming people back in. So thank you.
Governor, do you have a minute?
Yeah.
Somebody to take questions? Is that what?
Yeah,
Out here, Dan. You didn't know there was.
For the governor and the first selectman, we have a lot of people are
are live streaming, I
Okay.
can see. And for
Okay.
the local folks who are like, oh, this means more people in my area, traffic. How do you respond to those comments right now with, after our discussion today?
Well, I'd rather see cars coming here than leaving, for one. I think that Newtown has managed its growth well. I mean, certainly there are infrastructure challenges. I think the state is, at least it's in the works to, and we won't get into, how we're paying for that, but there are projects down near the highway. They're working on the interchange. So I do think that there are plans in the works to address some of our bottlenecks in our local infrastructure. But much of what we're seeing right now, we're not seeing a lot of new housing starts. We're seeing a lot of reinvestment in the community. So I don't know necessarily that we're bringing in tons and tons of new the market is transacting. We're seeing a lot of existing homes selling at premiums over what they were asking. So I think there are a lot of positives. I think we've managed our growth well. I think that from a commercial development standpoint, I think we've planned for it appropriately. I think the zones that we've designated for commercial, it's not sprawling. I think everything's contained, and I think we've done a great job as a town preserving open space at the same time. The town manages something like 3,000 acres of open space. That's the town itself between easements and what have you. And then we also have a private forestry association in town that has well over 1,000 acres too. So I think it's all about life and balance. And I think that's what Newtown enjoys so very much.
Hey, Governor, can you drill down a little bit on these red alert communities? Southeastern Connecticut, what do you think is contributing to the community spread in that area? And what is the state doing to come in and try and mitigate that?
Questions about the red alert communities. They have a higher infection rate. It's 15 per 100,000. Mostly in the greater southeast region, Norwich, New London, but you're right. We've added Norwalk and we've added Fairfield to that. And what's going on? We think in Fairfield that maybe is related to the university, some off-campus living. In Norwalk, we think it may be some folks relax their guard. And it's often these informal social interactions, not the formal one at the school or the restaurant, the informal ones. And so you said, what have we done? As you know, we got the rapid response team. And first thing else, we had right down the street, we had to go to Danbury about a month ago. And what the rapid response team does is go in with massive testing, do everything we can to get people tested on a regular basis. Everybody tested positive. We get them in quarantine. Anybody who's been in contact with somebody who tested positive, we get them in a quarantine. And at Danbury, we brought the infection rate down by, I think, 2/3. We have some work to do still at Norwalk and Fairfield, as you just implied.
I have one more question for you. And if it's okay, I'd like to read you from the Russian Ladies Facebook page, a nightclub in Hartford. They said, we are open. The Russian Lady is opened up all the way, 3 floors, 2 DJs, 1 place to be this weekend. Saturday, regular bar hours, VIP tables available, and it shows a picture of people on a dance floor with masks on, pretty close together.
With masks on, you said?
With masks on, but
Yeah.
pretty close together. I mean, bars.
Anyway, bars and nightclubs can't be open right now. And you maybe say, how are we policing this? How are you doing it? Are the cops going? No, we're hearing from people like you. People contact us. They contact the local Department of Public Health. Rob Blanchard's taking a note, and they're going to get a visit from us. We've got to be careful in those places where you're most likely to have a super spreader event, and that's one of them.
Governor, you're here today to, sounds like, celebrate the increase of housing value increase here in Newtown and other parts of the state. Some people see rising housing values as a fluke and not a feature because
As a what?
as a fluke and not a feature because it will price people out of the market. Home ownership already has the disparity to be able to afford a home. How is this growth? What are your intentions to make this growth an inclusive growth so others can benefit from it as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question is, we're here celebrating a demand for Connecticut housing. That's driving up some prices. People's houses are moving. People are able to move around. But are some people getting priced out of the market now because our houses were never the most affordable in the world. They're very affordable compared to New York and a lot of other places we're talking about, but still can be relatively expensive for people. So to your bigger point and what Dan was talking about, look, I welcome the growth. I welcome the opportunity. I also believe in having affordable housing in downtown areas in particular, so you're not dependent upon an automobile, and to make sure that we manage our growth in a way that preserves our open space and make sure that people who work in town can afford to live in town. You want to add to that, Dan?
Yeah, and thank you, Governor. I would say that we are seeing a mix in terms of the housing diversity that's coming in Newtown. So some of the new housing starts are actually apartment related in town. So we have, I think it's 75 units going down in Sandy Hook Center where it's walkable with sidewalks, and that helps to, I think, invigorate the business community there. That's, I think, what people are seeking. So I think it's about offering housing that speaks to, again, is inclusive. It's not just for people that can afford, 5,000 square feet on a half a dozen acres. It's about, I think a vibrant community is one that has a lot of different, diversity in its housing base. And we're seeing that in terms of some of the development that's taking place, which is in some ways new for Newtown. And there is an affordable component to some of those developments that are going in. So I do support that. I think it's, I think if positive activity begets positive activity, and when positive things are happening, it brings people to your town. If you try to, keep things like they always were, you're the town that folks are driving through, into the town that they're really intending to go to. So I think that Newtown has adapted, it's moved its feet. I think from an affordability standpoint too, a lot of times everyone gets caught up looking at the state standard for affordable housing. It's true, if you look at deed restricted affordable housing in a town like Newtown, we don't rank very well. But if you take that same AMI standard that the state uses for affordable housing, our single family homes, a full 30% of our town would be considered affordable. They're just not deed restricted homes. So I do think that we have diversity in our housing. We're offering apartments, we have, I think, something for everyone. And I think the towns do need to sort of look at what they're offering in terms of their housing stock and make sure that they're constantly adding diversity. Because I agree, it needs to be inclusive, and we want to be a town that invites everybody, not just folks that have a big bank account.
So what are those rents for apartment in downtown Sandy Hook? I imagine it's
Now I'm going to
little
get.
pricey.
No, actually, we actually adopted years ago. I think it's probably 6-8 years ago. The state had encouraged towns to work to create their own zoning around affordable housing. So I believe a full 20% of those units are deemed affordable. I can't quote the exact rent to you. Maybe Crystal can, but there is there's not an affordable.
Because I think there's an affordable component, but I don't know what the rent is.
Yeah, I don't exact. So I'd have to have my office give the rents, but 20% of those units are deed restricted affordable. We also have in Hawleyville, out by Exit 9, there's I think it's 30 units are open. There's another 60 under construction, and the total development is 210 units, of which, again, 20% is affordable. So I think Newtown does recognize that we have to provide a diversity in our housing mix. I think we've established that, and I think we're continuing to add more, and I think all communities should do the same. And I think
Governor, on another point on with these rates going up, you mentioned the 2.9 today and the basketball season coming up. Do you have any concerns about the UConn basketball season? Obviously, they normally draw big crowds, et cetera, et cetera. Do you foresee you potentially stepping in and canceling any games, or what do you see coming up on the horizon?
Looking at sports around the state and around the country, you probably saw that Boston just shut down their hockey rinks. That was took me by surprise because they kind of like their hockey up there. Look, when it comes to UConn basketball, one of the things I think they've done really well is keep the teams in a bubble. They work together, they eat together, they study together, and I think given that, what you saw in the NBA is a similar program for what we can do at UConn. So I feel pretty confident that they're able to manage their sports, including basketball, well. And Chris, I can't tell you about what the crowds or fans are going to look like, but it's probably going to be pretty limited, certainly to start off.
I was going to say, do you think any of these games should have no fans at all, or what is your position on
Is, you know, right now for the soccer, we have some fans. It's very limited right now. I do notice in the hockey that you've got a lot of parents who are cheering loudly, a lot of projecting, not wearing masks. And, you know, Boston has had hundreds of hockey-related infections. And it's not players checking each other on the ice. It seems to be all the stuff around the hockey tournament. It's getting into the car with 5 friends, driving to the tournament. Hey, here's a hockey player, yeah.
Governor, the CBIA released a survey of manufacturers. Apparently, 283 out of 878 responded. More than half, 50%, 56% said they had to lay off employees and reduce hours as a result of the pandemic. Only 18% said the businesses were growing, while 83% said they were either contracting or holding steady. More than half expect employment levels to remain stable over the next 6 months. 20% forecasting growth, 23% forecasting decline. How do you think the manufacturing sector is holding up with the pandemic? Can you repeat?
Was that about manufacturing or more broadly about the economy?
It was about well, there's a survey about manufacturing.
All right, there's a survey about manufacturing where they're not growing. Some people they can't afford to keep on. What does that say? So I say a couple things. One, we always kept our manufacturing open, just like real estate. We thought that was really important. A lot of them were essential services. And we had very, very few outbreaks or flare-ups in and around the workplace. Number two, one of the programs I think is something I always try and promote. It's called shared work. And that means if you're a manufacturer or you're retail or you're a service and you're not sure you can afford to keep everybody on board full-time, don't fire them. Keep them on board part-time. And we call it employment insurance as opposed to unemployment insurance. So you're paid to keep working. And that I hope will be very helpful, Paul, for those manufacturers who are waiting to see if the economy really takes off. Look, we're back at about 90% of our economy. So we're back more than just about any state in the region in terms of GDP. But we still have a way to go, and if you're not part of that 90 cents, it still hurts. 90%, it still hurts.
I have a question for retailers, and if the governor could jump in on this too.
Please.
Realtors, excuse me. I'm hearing so many anecdotal stories about people are getting priced out by 30 grand cash, and people are writing notes. I mean, for our viewers, our locals that are watching, do you have any advice? How you can stay in this market if you can't compete with that?
Well, first of all, you have to have stamina in this market. It is a seller's market. I mean, the good news, and I did want to address the whole idea of affordability in general in Connecticut briefly. You know, we have seen a modest increase in value, but I don't think there's any one of us that ever bought a home that didn't have the expectation that we would stay in it, maintain it, and see some kind of an increase in value. So that's a normal, healthy expectation. What we have not seen is, for the most part, you know, you get these isolated anecdotal stories, but they're really isolated where you've seen dramatic spikes. Overall, throughout the state, we're seeing a very modest increase in value, which is keeping us affordable and keeping the market very healthy and moving. Back to the idea of, you know, advice for buyers, it's very important that they have to start out, and I've always told buyers this in any market, you have to get pre-approved, you have to have your finances in place to be ready, because when you find the house you want, you're probably one of 5 couples minimal, or 5 people that want that same house. You're not the only one who's recognized the value. So you have to have all of the financials ready to go. And most people are. Most of the buyers that are out there today are very serious, which is good for the sellers. They're ready to go, they've gotten their financials in place, and they've lined up with a realtor who knows what they need, knows what they want, and is focused on getting them in.
Thank you.
So, this is for me, Governor.
2 questions. One related to COVID pandemic of late. Is there any one municipality that has taken a substantial action of some kind or another that you believe has already proven effective or will prove effective? And then I'll have one more question about real estate deals.
The question is, give me some municipalities that have maybe taken really proactive that help reduce the COVID infection rate. Well, I mentioned Danbury, for example. Look, it went up like a hockey stick. It's going down like a lamb in winter, or whatever the other analogy is. Norwich went up, it's now going down. New London went up, it's going down slowly. So it's not like you pour water on it and the fire goes out. but we have shown that we can control the spread, working closely with municipalities, working closely with track and trace and testing.
So it sounds like there's no specific steps you've heard of in those cities that really put a limit or a cap on things.
I think Danbury did a really good job. Nobody's a bigger champion for schools being open than I am, but they weren't ready to open their schools, and they took that tough medicine. Now Western's open, and hopefully their schools are going to open in a week or two as this downward trend keeps going in Danbury.
And one more on real estate deal. Obviously, besides green Connecticut schools and all that, taxes do play into the decisions when people are comparing New York versus Connecticut. What's your best understanding right now of the municipal tax situation for the next few years as the towns are absorbing some of the costs of COVID-19 compliance? They're reassessing what the impact is economically on them. Have you gotten any kind of a forecast from municipalities in general or specifically about what kinds of pressures they may be under?
Well, I'll let Dan finish this off on municipalities. What we've tried to do is hold the line on municipal aid and not cut that. In fact, we've been able to increase because of the CARES-related money. We allocated more of our CARES money to education, which went to towns and schools than any other state in the region, because we thought that was so important, and that was a cost. We've husbanded enough resources so we can continue to pay for PPE and sanitation and all the COVID-related expenses that we've got there. We still have some reserves to help out our cities. Right now, and Dan, you can reinforce this, I think the property taxes are coming back, and people are beginning to pay. We gave them an extra couple of months to do that, so I'd like to think we're stabilizing, but somebody here can contradict that.
Well, thank you once again for the promise to hold municipal aid. It's on film. No, that is critical. I mean, we do Newtown, even though all of our local services are funded by property tax. We do, north of 90% comes from local property tax. We do get about two mils in aid from the state, and that's critically important, especially as we try to sort of, manage to keep a lid on taxes as best we can. I think people, more than anything, businesses need predictability, and I think that the way that we've managed Newtown from a fiscal standpoint, I think we have a culture among our fiscal bodies in town of trying to do the right thing. We're trying to reduce our reliance on debt, trying to do a little more pay as we go, and I think that that's the biggest thing that I think taxpayers need is predictability, and I think that we aim to do our best on that front, and I know the governor is trying to do the same. I think taxes are an important ingredient on people deciding to stay in a state and relocate to a state. So I think we've got a good thing going, and we've got to make sure that we perpetuate it through appropriate tax policy. Is there another part of that question?
I think you nailed it.
Yeah. Okay. John. Oh.
Mitch, you'd like to say something?
Thank you. What Dan and the governor just said is I want to attest to the truth of that. As a four-term member of the legislature, and having spent 8 years on the Appropriations Committee, the 2019 budget that came from this man's office and eventually worked its way through the legislature, it did not touch our municipal aid, and most importantly, it did not touch our state-supplied educational cost-sharing dollars. In 4 budgets that I've presided over in appropriations, that's the first time this has happened, that we didn't have to hold our breath, kick and scream, and carry on like a bunch of maniacs to get our fair share back. So I hate to make this a love fest, but thank you. That's all I have to say.
Governor, I have a trained contact tracer in the family, and I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and she's already on the phone and on the computer. I go to bed at 11 at night, she's still working. Could you say something in support of all of the folks here in the Newtown Health District and across Connecticut that are working hard as contact tracers, but more important, encouragement to the people who get the call, who the contract tracers need to be able to flatten the curve?
Yeah, let me end on that. But thanks to your daughter, and by the way, thanks for all the local health departments. They've never been so busy. We got them some funding yesterday. What they're doing, they're out there doing enforcement. They're out there explaining the testing, and to your point, the track and trace. It is so vital for us to be able to test, isolate, and hold down this. We've got the new Apple Google app. We're rolling that out over the course of next week or so. It's only as good as people use it. We'll see. It's an opt-in. Nothing is more important than having somebody from the community give you a call. We give you a text that says what it is. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to you to say, look, you've tested positive. Let me tell you what we can do. We have community outreach workers. We can find you a place to stay. We can get you a little financial support. We can have a DoorDash so we can get food delivered to you. You're not going to be without. We got you covered. Now you've got to tell us who else you've been in contact with. Because if you could tell us that, we can keep them safe as well. And so I want to thank your daughter, I think you said it was, your wife, for what she's doing. And I hope she gets some friends, because I think she may need a few friends for the next couple of months. Hey, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. I know there's 168 other places you all could have been today, and I'm grateful. And I know on behalf of our community that you chose Newtown. I think there are a lot of positives. I appreciate the support that the governor's given our town, and I thank you all for being here today. And on one final note, I know the governor has said that he likes stories. Everyone was talking about housing affordability, and Dave Landau, one of our realtors in town, mentioned to me that he just sold a home to someone, their first home, to someone in the, it's a forklift operator, so someone in the trades. Their first home was right over here, and that was just within the last a couple weeks. Yeah, just now. He just did it while we're during this press conference. So again, I think that Newtown does offer entry points for everyone, and I appreciate you all for recognizing that today. Thank you.